All right, I'm Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, and we had a deputy involved shooting this evening. Deputies responded to 252 Whisper Lake Road here in Palm Harbor at about 10 minutes to 7 this evening. We received a phone call that the person who lived here in the house, Stanley Eversole, E-V-E-R-S-O-L, who's a 55-year-old male, had been in a fight with his girlfriend over the last couple of days. His girlfriend is a female by the name of Lora, L-O-R-A, Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R. They live here together. And apparently Richter had won a European vacation, a buy one, get one free European vacation, and she decided to take a friend of hers, a girlfriend of hers, on this trip, and not Eversole. He apparently in the last day or so became extremely upset about that. He owns a crossbow, and he threatened her with the crossbow several times over the last day or two, and told her that if she called the police, she was going to kill the cops who showed up. So she didn't call the police. He continued with this angry and erratic behavior over the last couple of days. Tonight, she was in communication with the friend who she was going to take on this European vacation. And when the friend no longer could communicate with her via text message, she became concerned. And the friend had her daughter come by the house. When the friend's daughter came by the house, she saw Stanley Eversole standing in the front yard with what she believed at the time to be a rifle or a shotgun, some sort of a long gun. And that is consistent with the crossbow that we have recovered here at the scene. And at a distance, that crossbow would look like a shotgun or a rifle. So when the friend's daughter saw Eversole with what she believed to be a firearm, she called the sheriff's office. So deputies were responding out here with information that Eversole was upset, with information that he had a rifle or a shotgun, and that's what they were responding to. When deputies arrived here at the scene, the girlfriend, Lora Richter, arrived back at the residence. They moved her off to the south and were in the process of talking with her. One of the deputies went around here to the west side of the house, and the residence is right over here off of my left shoulder. And as he was looking through the window, he could see Eversole inside the residence, and he had the crossbow in his hand. And so we're talking a crossbow with what I would call an arrow. There's a more technical name for it, but it was in the bow, and the crossbow was cocked, and he had several other arrows in a case that was with him, and he was inside the residence. Shortly after the deputy saw him inside the residence, he exited the residence, and there were two deputies who were standing trying to assess the situation on the northeast corner of the residence. As Eversole exited, he pointed the crossbow at the two deputies who were here on the northeast corner. There were two deputies standing across the street who were covering the deputies who were up at the corner of the house. And the two deputies across the street were Corporal Casey Hunter and Deputy Brian Sudbrink. They both had semi-automatic rifles, and when Eversole leveled the crossbow at the two deputies who were standing at the corner of the house, they each fired 2 rounds. 3 or 4 rounds struck Eversole. He was not pronounced deceased here at the scene. He was transported to Bayfront Medical Center, where he has since been pronounced deceased. The crossbow is sitting here in the yard. I've seen it. There are several other bows there. It's fully cocked, ready to go. And the distance at which the deputies were standing when he pointed that crossbow at them was well within the distance of the crossbow, and we're lucky that the deputies weren't shot with that crossbow. Bulletproof vests don't stop those arrows that come out of a crossbow, and luckily there was cover across the street, and Deputy Sudbrink and Corporal Hunter were able to effectively make sure that the other two deputies weren't shot. As far as the criminal history of Eversole, apparently he spends most of his time down here. He does spend some time up north. We know of no criminal history for Eversole. We don't have anything in our system as far as any history of mental health. But from the information that we were receiving, and as always, this is an evolving situation. The investigation is fresh, it's ongoing, but he was acting erratically in the last day or so and exhibiting signs of what I would characterize, based on the statements that have been made to us, as mental health issues, anger issues, etc. But we don't have any history of that. He's never been Baker acted before that we know of, and we don't have any reports of anything occurring here at the residence involving him. So we'll continue the investigation. We'll look thoroughly at that to see if there's anything in the background that would have shed any light on this, but we don't have any experience with him. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have.
Sheriff, does this investigation take a different twist because the deputies who actually shot the suspect weren't the deputies who were actually in danger?
No, because the whole purpose of that was, and is that the deputies who were across the street were covering the deputies who were at the corner of the house. And the deputies who were at the corner of the house, one of the reasons, and again, this is fluid and it's evolving and it's unfolding and it's, like I said, very fresh. But from where they were, they also had a crossfire situation because the girlfriend and the deputy who was interviewing her were to the south beyond where the suspect was. So that was a concern that they had in their mind. The deputies, from what I know at this point, said that they were in fear. They were considering firing, but they were also worried about that crossfire situation. So the deputies who fired had clear shots. They were across the street. They had rifles. They didn't have handguns and could take effective action. It's normal. It's a usual circumstance when you have a cover type situation that contact deputies aren't necessarily the ones that are going to fire. The cover deputies would, because they're in a position to best affect that action. So they were protecting the other two deputies when they fired. They saw him turn, they saw him level the crossbow at the two deputies, and again, well within the range that the crossbow could fire, and so no issues there that I see.
Sheriff, were they already in cover mode and in that position because they were told by the girlfriend that he had already made those threats? They were aware of that going into this?
Well, what they were aware of is that he had, at that time, what they believed to be a rifle or a shotgun. And so that they knew what they were responding here to was that somebody that had made threats and was armed with a rifle or a shotgun. That's what they knew at that time as they were responding here. So of course they were taking great caution with cover and concealment, and that's why they had positioned themselves around the corner of the house. But I can tell you that they were not totally concealed because they were trying to, again, assess the situation. So they were standing by the corner of the house, but they weren't concealed by it because they were trying to get a vantage point to see what happened when he abruptly exited the house. And so when he abruptly comes out of the house, again, remember what I told you is that a deputy saw him through the window in the house. And they thought the situation was contained. He was in the house and they were trying to get a plan when he abruptly exited. And when he abruptly exited the house is when he turned and pointed the crossbow at those two deputies. So they were in a vulnerable position. They were in a position where they would have been shot by it had he been able to pull that trigger. And so the deputies across the street were acting to prevent their fellow deputies from being shot with that crossbow.
Sheriff, does the fact that two deputies fired at once tell you that there's pretty clear agreement that this was a justified shooting?
Well, what it tells me is they both perceived a threat and they both fired at the same time, and that they both believed that the other deputies were in danger and their lives were in danger, and they needed to do what they did in order to make sure that those deputies weren't shot. So,
can you talk about how the response changes given this person apparently was armed with some kind of longer weapon, not necessarily a handgun, maybe some kind of unconventional weapon? How does that change the response?
Well, it changes the response because, as you can tell from what I said, is that Corporal Hunter and Deputy Sudbrink took out their rifles. So they were coming to a situation. They weren't coming to a situation with somebody with a handgun or a knife. They were coming to a situation where somebody supposedly had a shotgun or a rifle. That's why they had their rifles out. Because you want to meet that type of force with equal force. And again, at the distance in which they were across the street offering cover is that the more effective with the rifle than with a handgun. So given the totality of the circumstances and how they would prepare for something like this, coming again, knowing that you had somebody who was armed, they believed armed with a rifle or a shotgun, a long gun, is that everything looks like it was done the way it should have been done and appropriately. Again, they were trying to establish a perimeter. They were trying to use cover and concealment, but you got to be able to view what's going on. They had to come out from the side of the house, and when they were standing, again, away from the house, but towards the corner of it is when he turned and pointed that crossbow at them.
And do you know how long? I assume it was a matter of seconds that the gun was pointed and that he was taken out.
Correct. That's one of those things where before you act and you shoot, you don't wait for him to shoot. It's too late at that point. You wait for him to act and you wait for him to shoot, then deputies are going to be dead, and we can't have that. You can't wait. As soon as somebody takes it and takes that crossbow or takes a firearm, as soon as they raise it and they level it at you, you got to take action. And what the girlfriend had said is that he made those several statements that if the cops came, he was going to kill the cops. When the girlfriend who was here, and that's Richter, when she was on the phone with the other woman and she learned the cops had been called, she became extremely concerned and told the woman on the phone something to the effect of, "Oh no, he's going to kill the cops," because she didn't call the cops herself. And apparently that's one of the reasons why she didn't call in the last day or so as all this was evolving, because of his threats toward law enforcement.
Is he an avid hunter? Is that why he had his crossbow? And were there any other weapons in the home?
I don't know that. Again, we don't know. It's fresh. This is a few hours old. It's evolving. Again, he had additional arrows, as I would call them, there, and there were some knives. He was also armed with some pretty big knives. I don't know as far as any other weapons in the home. We haven't been in the home yet.
Both deputies on paid administrative leave pending outcome of the investigation.
Well, our routine practice in this situation is that the deputies who fired their weapons will be placed on routine paid administrative leave and until they're cleared to come back to duty.
Did he hold her hostage at any point? You said that a couple days, so she was free to leave and go, but didn't call because she didn't want the police or deputies to show up.
Correct, and in fact, no, she was not held hostage. She wasn't held against her will, and in fact, Lora Richter was not here when the deputies arrived. She was down at the post office, the Palm Harbor post office, just to the south of us here, and I guess to the north of us here, actually. And so she was actually not here, and that's when, again, the woman who was supposed to go on the trip sent her daughter by the house, and she wasn't here. So she was actually up at the post office. So Lora Richter was never, based on any information we know at this point, never held against her will. She was threatened, and she was threatened with a crossbow, and he pointed the crossbow at her and told her that if you call the cops, I'm going to kill the cops who come. So she was obviously concerned, but she didn't call us. She didn't take any other action. And again, it was the daughter of the girlfriend who called, and then that caused her great concern because of the statements about going to kill the cops.
Look at the spelling of the deputy's name.
Sure, Casey Hunter, C-A-S-E-Y, Hunter is H-U-N-T-E-R, and Brian, B-R-I-A-N, and it's Sudbrink, S-U-D-B-R-I-N-K.
And you said Eversole?
Eversole, E-V is in Victor, E-R-S-O-L, S-O-L, Stanley D. Eversole. Date of birth is 6/2/61. 55-year-old male.
And then Lora Richter.
Lora, L-O-R-A. Last name is Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R. She's born in 1947.
So
the girl who drove by the house is Lisa Sampietro, S-A-M-P-I-E-T-R-O. Lisa's the one that called and said she saw Stanley with the rifle or shotgun.
that's her. That's Laura's daughter.
No, that's the that's the daughter of the friend, and the friend is Mary Jo, B-A-R-R-A-N-C-O. So Mary Jo was going to go on the trip with Lora to Europe. She's the friend, and then the daughter, who's Lisa, is the one that came by and saw Stanley with the rifle or shotgun. I know it's confusing, but it is what it is, and you got what I got.
Are you able to show us a picture of the gun itself?
Yeah, we can try and get one to you of the crossbow. Yeah, it's laying there in the front yard. Forensics is processing the scene, but we'll see if here shortly, as we usually do, I'll get you a picture of that, and we'll make every effort to do that.
About how big is the arrow or whatever?
No, it's good size. Yeah, it's when I just saw it there laying in the yard. I mean, at a distance, it does look like a long gun, and it's black and it's got like a grip on it. So we'll